Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Natasha Burney. We warmly welcome Mrs. Sharon Bown, Air Force Association National Vice President. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Squadron Leader Mervyn Powell. Mervyn Powell was born on the 22nd of June 1914 in Mackay, Queensland, the son of Elizabeth and Thomas Powell. His father was a prominent cane farmer and industry representative. Growing up, Mervyn had 3 sisters, Daphne, Nelda and Elizabeth, and 2 brothers, Thomas and Gordon. He attended Hill End School and was said to be a brilliant student. He then went to university in Brisbane, graduating with a Bachelor of Science, majoring in agriculture. Before the Second World War broke out, Powell was living in Laetoka in Fiji, where he worked as a field chemist for Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, now the CSIRO. He was also a volunteer with the Fiji Defence Force and a captain in the Army Medical Corps. Powell enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 14th of October 1940 at the age of 26. He trained as a pilot and embarked for overseas service on the 27th of June 1941. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Arriving in Egypt in July, Powell was posted to number 117 Squadron of the Royal Air Force, based in the Sudan and flying Lockheed Hudsons. In August 1942, he joined number 162 Squadron, RAF, and then number 40 Squadron, based in Egypt, Libya and Tunisia, as the British Army pursued Rommel's Africa Corps. For a raid on enemy shipping in Tunis on December 1942, Powell was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. In 1942, Powell was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. His citation read, "This officer has at all times displayed conspicuous devotion to duty, and it is entirely due to his efforts that the results obtained by his squadron have been so successful. He has been a source of inspiration to the whole squadron." After his tour in North Africa, Powell sailed for Britain in April 1943. There, he underwent specialist training to pilot the Avro Lancaster. He was posted to number 463 Squadron of the Royal Australian Air Force. On the night of the 10th of May, 31 Lancaster bombers from numbers 463 and 467 Squadrons, RAAF, departed as part of a major RAF raid from Waddington, England. Their target was the heavily defended railway yards of Lille in France. Squadron Leader Mervyn Powell was the pilot of Lancaster Joe J. Also on board were Australians Flight Lieutenant Reid, Flying Officer Croston and Flying Officer Robert Croft, and Brits Sergeant Molyneux, Flying Officer Jacques and Flight Sergeant Fraser. Sometime before dawn, Powell's aircraft was shot down by a Luftwaffe pilot. The bomber crashed in a clay pit of the brickworks just outside the Belgian village of Langemarck, some 30 kilometres northwest of Lille. It was determined that the aircraft had likely exploded mid-air and all aboard had died instantly. 12 Lancasters were lost on the raid altogether, and 50 airmen were recorded as casualties of the mission. Powell's body was found still strapped into his pilot's seat. The villagers of Langemarck held a memorial service for the crew, and their remains were buried in a nearby cemetery. In 1946, the bodies were exhumed, and Powell's remains were interred in the Wevelgem Communal Cemetery in Belgium under the inscription, "He died that we might live." Mervyn Powell was 29 years old. He was dearly mourned by his family, who placed in memoriam notices in the newspapers following his death. One read, "Our thoughts are far away in some far distant land, where our dear cousin and nephew lies 'neath the cold and silent ground. Oh, may the wind blow softly on that sweet and hallowed spot. Though the seas divide his grave from us, he will never be forgot. We think of him in silence, his name we oft recall, and there is nothing left for us but his picture on the wall. God knows how much we miss him and counts the tears we shed and whispers, 'Hush, he only sleeps. Your loved one is not dead.'" Squadron Leader Mervyn Powell's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died whilst serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We remember Squadron Leader Mervyn Powell, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.